Hey everyone, and welcome. Have you ever really thought about how a pile of raw iron ore becomes a skyscraper? Or how a plant, just some fluffy cotton, turns into the t-shirt you're wearing right now? Well, that incredible transformation, that's what we're diving into today. It's all about secondary economic activities.
I mean, just look at this landscape. It's absolutely packed with buildings, ships, infrastructure. But here's the thing. None of this just appeared out of thin air. Every single piece of it had to be made. So let's get into the story of how our world gets built.
All right, so first things first. What are we actually talking about when we say secondary activities? It really all boils down to one powerful idea. To put it simply, this is all about taking raw materials, the stuff we pull out of the ground or grow in the fields, and using manufacturing to turn it into something new. And here's the really crucial part, making it more valuable. This is the world of factories and production lines.
And the one word you need to remember for this whole process, it's simple. Transformation.
It's almost like a kind of industrial magic, really. You can see it right here. We take some lumpy iron ore from a mine and transform it into sleek, strong steel beams for buildings. We take that fluffy cotton from a farm and turn it into a t-shirt, or we process wood pulp into the paper for our books. Every single time, we're adding value and we're adding usefulness. Okay, so we know what manufacturing is, but the next huge question is where does it happen? And trust me, it is not random at all. In fact, there's a very specific code that companies try to crack to find that perfect spot. So let's go back to our image for a second. If you were going to build a gigantic factory, why would you pick this exact spot? I mean, out of all the places in the world, what makes this location better than any other? Well, the answer is a mix of different factors.
You can basically break down this whole location recipe into two main groups of ingredients. On one hand, you have the physical factors. That's what nature gives us. And on the other hand, you have the human factors. That's all the stuff that we build.
Okay, let's zoom in a little. See that river snaking its way past the factory? That is absolutely not a coincidence. Big industries need a ton of water, for everything from cooling down hot machinery to processing materials. So having a river right there, that's a massive physical advantage.
Now let's look at the human side of things. Follow those power lines. See the wind turbines in the distance? A factory is pretty much useless without power. You need a stable, non-stop supply of energy to keep those machines humming 24/7. It's the lifeblood of the whole operation. But wait, how do you get all your raw materials in and then ship your finished products out? That's where transport comes in. Just look. You've got a port for ships, a railway, an airport, and roads everywhere. This whole network is like the circulatory system for industry, connecting the factory to the rest of the world. And finally, who's going to work at the factory and who's going to buy all the stuff it makes? Well, see those cities nearby? They provide both. You get a whole pool of skilled workers to run the place, and you get a market full of customers ready to buy your products. Being close to people is absolutely key.
So now that we know the recipe, let's zoom all the way out and see how this plays out on a global scale. Because when you start applying these location rules across the entire planet, some really clear patterns start to show up.
And what you see is that industrial power isn't just spread out evenly. Not at all. It's heavily concentrated in a few key regions. Places like Eastern North America, Western Europe, and East Asia. Why? Because that's where you find that perfect storm of all the physical and human factors we just talked about. These are essentially the workshops of the world.
Now, of course, it's easy to just lump all of industry together as one big thing, but the reality is way more diverse. In fact, there are a bunch of different ways we can slice and dice and classify all these activities.
This table does a great job of breaking it down. So, first you can sort them by size. You've got your massive large-scale steel plants on one end, all the way down to a small local bakery, or even a cottage industry like pottery made right at home. Then you can group them by the raw materials they use, so agro-based for things like sugar or mineral-based for cement. And finally, you can look at who owns them. Is it a private company? Is it run by the government? Or is it some kind of joint partnership?
So we've covered the what, the where, and the which. But let's just step back for a second and ask the most important question: why does any of this actually matter to you and me?
This quote just nails it, I think. The location of industry is not an accident. It's this complex dance between geography, technology, and economics. Nothing is left to chance. Every factory, every product, every job, it's all part of this giant, interconnected system that follows some very clear rules.
And when it comes down to it, this is the system that literally builds the world we live in.
It's the engine that powers our economies, and it shapes our lives every single day in ways we probably don't even think about, from the car you drive to the phone in your hand to the roof over your head.
And that kind of brings us to our final thought. We've just seen the factors that built the industrial world we know today. But things are changing, right? With new technology and climate change rewriting the rules, will these workshops of the world stay put, or will they move? Where do you think the next great industrial hubs will pop up? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.